come on up.
Hello. My name is Tyreek. I am the developer of a platformer roguelike called Catacomb Kids. It's in early access and whatnot. And a week or two ago, I guess, whenever PAX was, I was in PAX and I was at PAX Dev on a panel with Tarn and several other developers speaking about procedural generation. And one topic that I kind of wanted to get to that I didn't, because it was kind of weird and tangential, and I had only just thought about it sort of the night before, is one of the questions on the panel that I knew that we were going to have was if you could add or remove procedural generation from any game, what would it be and why, and how do you think that would change it? And so what I ended up going with on the panel was Zelda. I would make a procedurally generated Zelda because I love me some Zelda. But what I really wanted to say was I would remove procedural generation from life. And because I don't know why, but that thought just occurred to me when I read the question. I was like, what would I remove procedural generation from? It's life. What would that even be like? Would we all just wake up in the same day? So it would be like Groundhog Day, but for your entire life, and then you'd wake up as someone else and live through that same life. Would that be life without procedural generation? But if that's the case, then we're all living the same setup. The world has the same initiating conditions as when we're born, but we're still different people, so we're making different choices. As in a game that doesn't have procedural generation, it's the world is the same, but you can make different choices. But then I was thinking, what's even the point of that if you can't talk to anybody else about the different choices that you're making? So that got me back to thinking about games, and that what's the point of having procedural generation in games if there's no community around to discuss the differences of their experience? And so that was my thought. And I also had another thought on the same sort of lines, if you remove procedural generation from life, well, would we even exist? Because going back, it's what would even have made people? Because that's all procedural, right? So that got me thinking there's kind of these different areas, different beginnings of procedurality. So it's okay, in games, it's okay, you can do the Dwarf Fortress way where you generate the entire history, you'd go way back, or you can do something I just generate the next room as soon as you enter it, or as the first time you interact with someone, it's they've existed, but they don't really exist until you talk to them. It's is that where the procedural generation comes from? I don't know. That's just, I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks, and I haven't gotten further than that. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Yeah, come on up.
Hey there. My name is Sean Main, and I'm a little bit of an exception in this space because I work on games, but I work on an analog game, Magic the Gathering. And I love it for a lot of the same reasons that I love roguelike games. It's all about sort of combinatorics and all these various possibilities. And at Wizards, I have this reputation for being someone who really likes randomness. But that's not really true. What I really like is games with this big possibility space. And one thing I think about a lot is sort of how randomness feeds into game design overall. And I don't think games need this explicit randomness in them, but what they need is uncertainty, because uncertainty creates drama. So unless you have a game that's testing a physical skill, a sport or a twitchy kind of game, you need something that's going to create that sense of uncertainty in your game. And that can most often, especially historically, most often that's generated from explicit randomness. But there are other sources. There are things like hidden information. A game like Diplomacy is really good at hiding information from the players. So I'm making my move in secret. You're making your move in secret. We have imperfect information. And or puzzle games are a good kind of thing in this vein as well. Although those just don't have the replayability. So they don't have that really long, wide tail kind of possibility space. But Anyway, I was going somewhere with that thought, and now I've lost it. So thank you.
Hey, the screen's, I guess, not on, so I'll just talk. Hi, my name's Casey Calderup, and I host a Twitch stream twice weekly called Nethack Nights. This is an advertisement, but also a plea, so I'll get the advertisement out of the way real fast. If you go on Twitter and search for Nethack_Nights is the username, or go on YouTube and search for Nethack Nights, you can see the episodes. I actually only started playing Nethack in earnest this year when I started doing the Twitch stream, and so you can kind of watch the back episodes and see someone learning practically from scratch. I kind of knew bits and pieces about the game, but I'd probably never made it past like level 5 or 6 of the dungeon. The real plea here, though, is that all of you should be streaming Nethack on Twitch. There's like 2 people who do it. I don't know if the Great Gilder Sneeze is in the room. He's like the one other person who does it that I see on Twitch. But it's a really fun game, obviously. There's surprising things that can happen, that can come out of any given playthrough of the game. You all know this already. And it's just really fun to have people in the chat yelling at you, asking questions. People who know the game, John and Sir Pell and a few other people who watch me are regularly like screaming at me with the 20-second delay after I do something horrible. You should check it out. Streaming's really easy. With NetHack especially, you don't need a fast computer, obviously. You just need to run the streaming software and then a terminal. Everyone please check out Twitch and play more NetHack.
Come on up.
So I can use the browser, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, try
Is
it
it
out.
on? Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. Let's see.
I just want to bring up
Yeah.
a video.
Yeah, I'll just hold the screen for a second. Yeah, the screen's not on, so.
I don't need it necessarily.
I'll just tell
Okay.
a story.
I can show you guys later. That's what I'm here to talk about. I can bring it up. You can? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll do it.
And full screen, it could be a green button.
The green.
Side.
Is it a
A red,
physics?
and a yellow, and a green button. Could be green button.
On what?
You got the blue wire. The yellow one. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Okay. So, hi, I'm Steve Mason. I'm going to be showing a game that I've been working on for the last 10 months. It is a roguelike in VR. I don't have a VR headset here, but the game does run in non-VR mode. So this was a very interesting design challenge. Like, how do you take something as sort of abstract as a text game? So it sort of ended up as a conflation of roguelikes and traditional roguelike conventions, and also tabletop pen and paper D&D style miniature action. So that's sort of the representational form of the game. And it's also a coffee break roguelike. So anyway, I'm just going to show a quick video because I don't know if everybody's going to have a chance to see it. I can talk about it. It's only like 90 seconds. So obviously there's no asterisk. It's a little bit more literal in terms of its actual dungeon tiles and 3D characters with monsters. So it looks similar, I think, to like games like Diablo or Gauntlet, but it's still turn-based. The dungeons are all procedural. The item drops are procedural, et cetera, et cetera. So I tried as best as I could to honor the spirit of traditional roguelikes, but it's in VR. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Oh, Minotaur's Maze.
Right? Hey, come on up.
So, hey guys, my name's Russ. I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology and did my master's degree there. That'll be important later. This is somewhat of a love story about NetHack, and it needs a decent bit of background. And so I joined the computer science house with this guy, Will, here, who's also, well, here. They had a fairly strong NetHack community internally, and would run these things called binges, where they would spend 12 to 24 hours basically straight playing NetHack. and they would get in a room together and do a lot of this. And there was a decent amount of NetHack actual development, and you can remember this is a technical school, that would go on as well. As far as I'm aware, they never actually publicized any patches that they made or even discussed it externally. But one of the interesting things that they did was they built what they called the binge board, which was an ncurse's view, much like nethack.alt.org's view of a player line that would update in real time as users played through, and we would put that up on a projector and play NetHack, and that was really cool to me, and I got really into that. And me and another friend and Will here, me Clockford and Will, did quite a bit of development on that, and we ended up adding a bunch of features. We tried very hard to be true to kind of the spirit of the gameplay, but we added like a lot of existing patches for like UTF support, all of that. I ended up writing, changing gameplay slightly. I added the Ring of Power as an actual in-game item, and we also added a bunch of other stuff. We made it so that games would actually write the X stats, the player stats, to a database, and we rendered a website, and we're able to grant achievements for like your first game ever played, or cross-game achievements. I also had a Twitter bot, which would be tweeting games as you died, and one of the biggest issues though was in NetHack and similarly in Rogue, when you, although Rogue's architecture is slightly different as I understand now, when you change anything about the player or many other things as well in the game's source, the way that the save game is structured, you break all save games, and that's was one of the biggest limiting factors in the changes we made, because we really didn't want to break everyone's save games. And so I started down this journey to find a way to have these forwards compatible save games and Bones files. Actually, Bones files had the same problem, and I was doing my computer science degree. Like I said, it was BSMS, and I was looking through the code, and I was like, okay, I decided in order to do this, I needed to, and I can go into why, but I'll skip that. Like, I needed to have the save game format in JSON, and in order to do that, the core feature that was missing, for the computer scientists in the room, was introspection in the C language. And so I'm like, okay, in order to do this, for the complexity of the NetHack code base, I needed to change the C language. And I'm like, well, I mean, okay, like, why not? So it was a long project, and it was a long project in that I had no idea what I was doing, and I had that on the back burner for a long while. And then when it came to time to figure out what I was doing for my master's thesis, I thought of this, and I was like, I'm like, I've never done this before, obviously, a master's thesis. Like, I have no idea what a master's thesis is or should be. What are the big projects that I really would like to do? And I thought of this one. So I found the faculty member in the university who seemed to be most appropriate for that kind of work, and and presented to him. He's like, yeah, that seems reasonable. And so I ended up producing a body of work that, in retrospect, has some flaws, but the paper was entitled Introspection via Self-Debugging. I made the observation that a debugger can, I mean, I don't want to get too far into the technical details, but I did end up being able to serialize all these structs to JSON. At that point, I'd been working on it for literally a year. I'd spent I don't know, 6 months, 5 months or so, like unemployed while working on it, so completely full time, and was honestly fed up. So once it worked and I finished the paper and got the degree, I put it down for a while. It's been about 3 years since then. That said, I really love this conference. This is great, and it's kind of inspired me to want to try and put together a NetHack binge here with everyone, and I'm probably going to follow up later to try and do that. And I was actually really excited to see that the guys who work on nethack.alt.org was here, because we also me and Chris and Will took the D-Game launch and all that stuff, and we were running our own nethack.csh.rit.edu server with our own patches. We called it Binge Hack, with this goal of being, geared towards this collaborative work. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's like a long story, but sorry about that. Thanks.
Come tell a story.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan. I run a hardware startup. We're based in the Mission. We are called Volute. We make fuel tanks for hydrogen cars. We are 13 people. And I don't write games. I don't write any programs, but I play a heck of a lot of modern roguelikes, so things with graphics. Sorry, I'm not the ASCII guy. But boy, did roguelikes make me a better CEO, and I want to talk about that for 2 minutes. And I think they can make you better at work also. And I'm going to have this talk have two purposes. If you don't know the games I'm talking about, take it as a game recommendation. If you do know the games, take it as business advice. So, game 1, Darkest Dungeon. Your team's mental health matters. It's not just how hard they can hit things, their feelings count. If your friends are going crazy, they will not get good work done. Learned this very hard at work, and it turns out now 90% of my job is actually just working with my people, making sure they're really cohesive, getting what they need, have what they need to do their jobs. Game 2, The Sunless Sea. The boat will move at the fucking speed that it wants to go and no faster. No matter how much you want to rush development, development moves at development's pace. Eventually, you can pour tons of resources into going faster and you will go slightly faster, but make that a project if it's going to be what you do. Game 3, Enter the Gungeon. There is always room for another bad pun. It turns out that if you are actually in a role of authority, you really actually have to control the jokes that you use. To make an inclusive workplace, curtailing your humor matters. And so what we would term as dad jokes are actually relatively universally appropriate. And having your team groan at them is one way to build cohesion. It's not for everybody, but find your style, use humor, and be inclusive. And I think that game does a really excellent job of having a corny but really effective humor style. I think I'm going to lump every roguelike on the iOS App Store together for this next one. There are a lot of companies out there that want to just take your money and waste your time. I know there are some gems out there on app stores, but boy, are there a lot of things that call themselves roguelikes out there that want your dollars and don't do much. Similarly, there are lots of consultants and vendors and suppliers and contractors who promise you the moon and just want a couple of bucks to do something that isn't that useful. Number 5, I would say this is now generally for roguelikes. Fundamentally, the thing that you get to keep with you is whatever's in your head. And so every day is a new playthrough. In some cases, every company is a new playthrough. And things are different every time, but spot the patterns and don't make the same mistakes twice. I think that's a lesson more than any other that I've learned from these games, that it's not the experience points, it's the actual experience. And that can really make the difference, especially when you're working with a collection of other people who have their own wants and needs and dreams and desires that aren't changing that fast. So that's what I've got. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, my name is Ian Betancourt. I'm working on a roguelike for fun. It is mostly incomplete. And I'm kind of here to inspire people to do sort of what I'm doing. Because when I started this, I was, frankly, a terrible programmer. I had took some programming classes in high school, and they taught me a lot. Enough to let me know that I know nothing. And so coming out of high school, I wanted to take computer science classes in college. And one of them was starting to learn how to use C. And I thought, well, I know nothing about C. I came from Java, and it's very different. So to learn it on my own before the class started, get a leg up on everyone else, I thought, why not write a roguelike in C? It's the thing that I've wanted to make basically since I started programming. Before I even knew roguelikes existed, I'd always imagined just creating a fun little game with characters that you see on the keyboard and moving them around in a dungeon. And so that's what I started working on. And I started to show it to other people, and they taught me things that the classes never taught. One of the major things that I learned was decoupling code, and that was from my roommate. We were taught things like data structures, and yeah, that's really useful. I use linked lists all the time, never trees. Despite all the time we spent learning about trees and navigating them and all the different kinds there are, I've used linked lists and arrays more than anything else. And it's really easy to get started with this limited tool set. I actually started writing basically my own engine. I didn't know things like libtcod existed, and I kind of like it more to make every last piece my own. So my engine is ncurses, which, if you don't know, is what you can use to put those little characters on the terminal and color them various colors. And that's all you basically need. C, a compiler, a debugger, if you're actually going to be spending a lot of time on it, and ncurses. You can get started, and you can learn a lot by showing it to people. There's quite the community online for that. People several times up here have already recommended r/roguelike dev. That's a great resource. Tons of people out there very friendly and willing to help you. And heck, I like talking to people. I like talking to people about this stuff. I don't have many people talk about it on my own. So yeah, send me a message if you'd like me to take a look at what you've written. I'm, again, not amazing. I'm not even close to amazing. But I would love to help and help other people get started. So my username on Reddit is Lankly, Lankly. Send me a message if you'd like to get started.
Hey everyone, I'd like to show you a game. So I'm going to have some AV setup to do. So I'd like to invite the next speaker to go ahead of me while I get the video working.
Any chance of the image from email?
Yeah,
Did it work?
It up here, and then we can bring up the.
How do I get to the email here?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Okay, this may or may not work with the image. If not, I've got it on my phone. I can read you the important part. But I just want to talk about my all-time favorite death in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. The Demon Spawn. Do we have Demon Spawn fans in the audience? Okay, it's my all-time favorite race to play as. They're very special because they start out as rather frail humanoids, but gain very powerful mutations as you level up. And each mutation comes in phases of 3. So you will start with a small pair of horns on your head, and then a pair of horns on your head, and then a large pair of horns on your head. And it gives you an extra melee attack, but at the cost of you can't wear helmets or any headgear anymore. So what I love about this class is that you have to roll with the punches. You have to adapt your play style. Like, you may have started with some magic user intentions, but you get some really good stealth and melee mutations. Maybe you should be going in that direction. So did we find the thing? Okay. I'm going to have to read it off my phone. Okay, so I'm a level 17 Demon Spawn. I'm in the Shoals, which has a lot of deep water in it. And flight is like a must-have in the Shoals. You can use a Ring of Flight, you can use potions, you can use magic, but the ideal, like for anyone before they get to that point, is the Boots of Flight, because that's just perpetual flight for free, and you can use every shortcut, and you can engage monsters that swim out in the middle of the ocean, such as the snapping turtle. And so I'm feeling really confident with this Demon Spawn, and walk right up to the snapping turtle, actually fly right up to the snapping turtle, and take a swing at it, kill it in a couple hits. And I'm going to read the text that happens next. So you've reached level 17. Your demonic ancestry asserts itself. Your feet mutate into hooves. Your +2 pair of boots of flying falls away. You float gracefully downwards. You fall into the water. You sink like a stone. You drown. You die.
familiar with the AV setup, so hopefully it'll work. Okay.
Yeah, but just a moment.
All right.
Let's see if I can get the necessary Linux technical stuff so that the display works.
I can tell a story in the meantime.
Yes, please.
All right. So I found NetHack when I was like about 11 or 12, and I was just looking for like Mac OS 8 shareware, like on Alta Vista or whatever it was. And I downloaded this game, and I downloaded a bunch of other little freeware games. And, I had no idea what Unix was. I had no idea what open source or the command line. I'd never heard of any of those things. I just had this old Mac, right? And so fast forward several years later, and my cool technical friend is like, "Oh, Britta, let me show you the command line." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds scary." And then I look at it, and I'm like, "Wait, I know how this works. This is just like NetHack." That's my story.
Cool. So, hey everyone, this has been such an amazing experience. Just growing up with roguelikes, I never ever imagined I'd be in a room with so many inspiring people who made these things. So thank you. It was awesome. I just want to show you a game that we can play together in the show and tell time that's coming up. So myself and a bunch of my classmates at university got really hooked on this version of Eggband that's kind of weird and cool. It's like an old version of Eggband, and they made it real-time and networked and multiplayer. So you can get a bunch of people in a dungeon at the same time, all interacting together. And there's a couple really weird things about it that I thought would be kind of fun to talk about. And I'll actually show you, but I need to connect to the server. So I'm going to put down the mic for a sec and hope this works. Oh, come on. Come on, network. Anyway, while it's trying to connect, there's some cool things about it. If you die, you turn into a ghost, and other players can come down and revive you. It's super cool. But if your ghost dies, then you're permadead. That's cool. There's also a shared, the base level. People can buy houses, and they can put inventory in those houses, and they can even make stores. And you can scum, but if a player's in a level, it will persist as long as the player's in that level. So you have to kind of ask people to leave the level that you want to scum for a while, and then you can come back. Okay, so it looks like maybe we might not have a demo, sorry. But yeah, if you want to play this game with me, come hit me up. Oh, wait, hang on. Come hit me up after this. Yeah, okay, on to the next speaker. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Oh, I need that too. I have HDMI. Is that no? What? Works for here. Can't see it. So the green button is there's no green button. Hello. While they get set up here, my name's Alex Handy. I'm the founder and director of the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, and I'm currently watching people play NetHack, of course. So but anyway, quickly I'll take you through a deck about the museum. We opened in 2011, and we have been growing. We have classes. We have all sorts of stuff. Our classes are all free. We teach kids how to program, how to make games, how to do art. We have tournaments and meetups. Meetups are one of the reasons I wanted to speak, is because if any of you, there were a lot of people here who said, no, I want to do XYZ roguelike event. Well, you can do it at the museum. We will totally host anything game related, whether it's a 24-hour NetHack bash or a wiki edit, whatever you guys want to. So please come up and talk to me afterwards if you have an event. We do collaborations, grant efforts, etc. But one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk to you, we inducted the 360 into our halls when it was end of life. We're growing every day, but one of the reasons I really wanted to speak is because our first exhibit was a random procedurally generated content games, and there are a lot of games I haven't heard anybody mention anything but Splunky today. So we did Dungeons & Dragons Cloud Mountain on Intellivision, Bomberman, and ToeJam and Earl, and Splunky. And then later on, we added Dwarf Fortress and NetHack when we brought it into the museum. So if anybody out there who is in the Bay Area and looking for something to do or someplace to volunteer or wants to do a roguelike event, a meetup, a game jam, anything like that, we'll let you host it for free at the museum. Just come talk to me. Thank you very much. Oh, it's in Oakland, near Kaiser, if anybody knows where Kaiser is, near MacArthur and Broadway. We're in Oakland. You can go to themade.org to find us. Thanks.
You really don't.
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay, you have 1 minute.
Hey, I'm Gabriel, and I wanted to talk very quickly to everyone about ASCII art. So top-down view in games like Hack is great for delivering data, and I really like what Cogmind is doing. My goal with ASCII art is to develop it as an art form, using games as a medium to deliver it. And I really want to see how far ASCII art can be pushed. And I think this is really relevant if you're trying to get a stronger visual experience for your gamers. So this is a development process that I used for this one boss fight in the sacrificial pit. And this is kind of where it turned a bit ugly here at the bottom, but then, backing up a little bit, this is kind of where I'm happy. And then I just need to start animating it. I built this trailer, it doesn't have any audio. It's 1 minute long. I'm going to play it. You guys tell me what you think. If you want to talk about ASCII art later, show me. I'm always looking for examples of things I haven't found yet. So let me know. And that's Stone Story.
Okay.
I have it to play.
Woo. Great. We're almost done. As always, I have more announcements. So we're going to watch Bruno Diaz's talk about Voyager here on this screen, because I didn't want to split things. If you are tired of talks and want to go play video games, you can go into Homeroom and do so. If you are one of the speakers or developers, we want to get a group picture, so come meet me by that end sign after I'm done talking, and we can remember that we were all in the same room at one point in our lives. We're selling the extra merch. If you want to buy some of the extra merch, extra socks or t-shirts, you can go talk to Ashish, who is behind me. And we are getting kicked out around 7 now. I don't know why the schedule set a different number, but we can all go out and have dinner and keep chatting. So,
Be really clear that we have to be out.
yeah, we have to be out by 7. It's so sad. And Tech Shop, which is right down the street, is a hacker space. It has lots of cool tools. They do tours. So Spar is going to lead some people over there to get a tour of their awesome milling machines, and they have like a magnet printer and lots of crazy stuff. Yes, one other thing. Thank you all for coming. This was great. I had a great time. I hope you all had a great time. We want to know what you thought of this so we can do better if we ever do this again. We have an email address you can email, which is info@roguelike.club, or also contact@roguelike.club. I think both of them work. They'll go to us, the organizers, give us all of your feedback, anything that you thought went really well, anything you thought could be better. We're going to compile it so we do not forget these things if we ever do this again. Thank you all for coming. It's been really great. It's going to be a cool talk on the screen in 1 minute, and then we'll all get to hang out. And people who need to be in a group photo over there.